Could the answer to your pain actually be growing right in your backyard? Well, for me, the answer was yes. What is mistaken as a common weed packs so much medicinal punch at a time when I need it oh so desperately. When most people look at this fun little spiky weed, although it is not a weed, you guys, okay? They think just that, though. They think, oh my gosh, it's just this little ground covering weed growing in my yard. But let me tell you guys, this commonly mistaken weed holds a punch. A few weeks ago, I did another video similar to this about a common mistaken backyard weed that has so many medicinal properties that we use religiously here on the farm, and that was goldenrod. So if you want to check out that video, you can look it up here. This little mistaken weed is one of nature's most powerful, tell them about it, one of nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory secrets. And let me tell you guys, I have needed this more in my life recently than I ever have before. So most people see this little weed growing in their yard and they probably don't even acknowledge it, right? I know I certainly didn't, because I just thought it was that, a weed, right? This is growing in my front yard, my backyard, my side yard. Anywhere I walk here on the farm, I am finding this multiple times a year. So I've been doing something a little crazy. I'm training for an ultra marathon. I know. And that means right now for my October prep, I have been running a 5K a day, every day, a little more, so that I can actually log 100 miles at the end of the month. While that might sound crazy to some, I've been really inspired by this. But what I have learned throughout these 16 days so far is that I'm not in my 20s anymore. So my knee hurts. I'm having a little upper foot pain, and I thought that as I started logging more miles, the pain would just go away. But apparently it's called runner's knee, and it's very common as you are establishing and becoming a runner. Now, for someone who relatively has never ran a day in my life, I kind of expected that I would have some bumps and bruises along the way training for this ultra marathon. Well, I did a quick Google search trying to figure out what I could do to kind of ease some of that pain and reduce the inflammation. Well, we all know what the internet is full of, right? Creams and gels and all these other things, full of a lot of things I really just wasn't comfortable putting on my body. So I was walking around the farm the other day, and literally this was underfoot. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jill, come on, get it together. You've been searching the internet for weeks trying to find a solution to something I was literally walking on almost every single day. My friends, let me introduce you to dandelion. You know those fun little whimsical things that you blow and you make a wish? We all probably did that as a kid. Well, there's a lot of medicinal properties in the flowers themselves, which we'll dive into the dandelion root itself, which we'll dive into, and then also in the leaves. And so here I was searching for an answer to my inflammation and my pain, and of course, I could forage it right in my backyard the whole time. So the scientific name to this little gal right here, I'm going to pop on the screen because I'm not even going to dare attempt to say that. The cool thing about this dandelion, though, is that it will grow anywhere that the soil has been disturbed, okay? So that's why we can forage it really readily from the spring all the way until late fall in our yards. You can find it in your gardens. You can find it in pastures. You can even find it growing in the cracks of sidewalks. I mean, it is one of the easiest herbs to forage and identify, and it's really cool because you can kind of see the jagged edges there, so it's really easy to identify it if you don't obviously see the dandelion flower growing or that fun little when it goes to seed. Even just if none of that's sprouted yet, the leaf itself is pretty easy to recognize and identify. And let me tell you guys, early morning's probably the best time. Nathan was actually going to come out and mow today, and I was like, hold on a second, I got to harvest my medicine before you mow it all down, because so many of us do that, right? We mow it and we don't realize. So we're going to take this into the house, and we're actually going to make it up into a few things that I cannot wait to share with you, because you guys, I have been consuming this for quite some time, and I don't know why it just came back to me. So it's really, really special herb because one, it's readily available to so many of us and we can forage it, but then every single part of it is usable. You can use the leaf, you can use the flower, and you can use the root for all different things. That is pretty cool. So another really cool thing about this is that, I don't know, it's just really wild to me that we can walk in our backyard and just harvest medicine, forage medicine. What you could go to the store and buy, I can literally walk out my front door and my back door and make it. And guess what? You can too. And so, I don't know, that just never falls short on me, just how special and cool that is, right? And so, I don't know, I'm just going to encourage you guys, don't finish the video, okay? I'm gonna encourage you to finish this video and then go walk out your back door or your front door or wherever and see if you can forage this and harvest it. And even if you're not in a place yet where you're ready to do something with it, dry it and save it and you can use it later, right? Today I'm going to be using some of the fresh leaves to whip up a tea, but you can certainly dry it as well and it will have a ton of medicinal properties. So that's going to be my little challenge to you guys today. Go do a little walk around your property, your yard, your neighborhood. Maybe you're even looking and finding these in sidewalk cracks, whatever that is, because it's just cool to be reminded of the beauty that's literally all around us. So while most people would just, mow this down thinking it was a weed, so many herbalists have actually called dandelion one of nature's greatest detoxifiers, which is why it's so special to me and how I'm going to be using it a lot to kind of combat with some of the inflammation that's in my knee and also in my foot. Because what it's actually doing, and this is the great thing about holistic herbal medicine to begin with, is that it gets to the root cause, right? So it's going to flush out a lot of those toxins that are causing the inflammation in my knee to begin with. And anytime you're trying to dive into holistic remedies or herbal wellness, it's going to take a little bit longer, right? Because it's a natural option, but most times it actually gets to the root cause, which is what I absolutely love about it. All right, so let's take it inside, whip up a tea, and talk some more about its anti-inflammatory properties. Okay, so here's how I turn this so-called weed into a remedy. I kind of mentioned earlier, you want to gather clean, unsprayed dandelion leaves, which is why you have to be mindful when you're foraging, right? We don't spray anything here on our farm, but if you're foraging this, maybe you see it in town, maybe it is in a sidewalk crack. You want to ensure that it hasn't been sprayed by anything because that is not what we are aiming here for. So make sure that it's just a clean source or a trusted source if you're not foraging it in your own backyard. And ideally, you want to harvest around mid-morning because you want the dew to be dried and you want the leaves not to still be wet when you're harvesting it. Or in the fall, like here we are, I can actually dig up the roots. Now, it takes a little bit of work because some of those roots on the dandelion are very, very long, but you could actually dig up all the roots to those dandelions, and right now in the fall is the perfect time to do that. And the cool thing about that is the dandelion is going to store most of its nutrients in its roots, so it's the perfect time to harvest them and then be able to do something with it later. So the first thing we have to do is just prepare the leaves. So I have got drying racks, right? Like herbal drying racks. You might even see my little makeshift one up here. You could certainly use like a cheesecloth or you could use just like a baking sheet, but you want to let the leaves fully dry out anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. The main goal is you just want all the moisture to have evaporated from the leaves. The reason that's so important is because whenever we make whatever it is that we're making with it, we're trying to prevent mold. And if there's moisture, that could cause the mold. So that's what, unless you're just whipping up something fresh like a tea, which we're going to do in a second, if you're making any sort of salve or anything like that, go ahead and just dry it fully, evaporate all the moisture so that you don't have some sort of remedy that you have to toss out later. All you're going to do, you guys, is just find your vessel. Once your leaves are fully dry, you're gonna find probably a pint mason jar would be the best bet. And you're just gonna fill that jar full of all these dried dandelion leaves. Then you're gonna cover it fully with a quality olive oil. And you just wanna make sure that all of your leaves are covered, because this is where that infusion actually starts to take place. And then literally all you do is set it and forget it. So there's nothing better about an herbal remedy that's pretty hands-off. Aside from foraging it, drying it, and then putting it together, you're just gonna infuse it, set it in a sunny window for like 2 to 4 weeks, and that's where the magic starts to take place. Or, while I don't always recommend this, if you are needing this remedy ASAP, you could kind of speed up this process by infusing it on low heat and kind of making the same remedy in a shorter amount of time. The longer that it sits and kind of naturally gets to do its thing, the more potency it's going to have, the more medicinal properties. But say I wasn't able to make a tea and I really needed this infusion, I could speed it up by doing this on low heat over my stove. But if you have time, I really recommend do that long infusion. It's just going to have more benefits in the long run. And then once your infusion is complete, this is where we get to take what was once a humble weed in the backyard and turn it into different things, right? Based off of how you think you're going to use it. And so one of the most common ways to use an infused oil, so let's say this was the springtime and I had plantain available to me, I would do the same thing. I'd harvest the leaves, infuse the plantain, and then I would make a salve. I tried to, while plantain in some areas can be foraged from spring into late fall, we typically only have plantain in my area, which is Arkansas, central Arkansas, in the springtime. Which was great though, because I did have dandelion and I could easily kind of use it for the same thing. And so you're going to infuse the oil, and then you're going to take part of that oil and you're going to make it into a salve. And that is so easy. You're just going to take part of that oil and you're going to melt it down with the beeswax and then pour it into your vessel, let it set, and then it's ready to use topically, which is great if you're dealing with inflammation and things like that. So this salve in particular is fantastic for sore joints, which is obviously what I am dealing with right now. Any sort of tired muscles, cramping muscles, but even if you have puffy skin, it's really good to kind of reduce that, right? Because it's an anti-inflammatory herb. That is one of its main medicinal properties. So it's going to reduce inflammation, which is going to help with the swelling and the puffy skin. And it's just really great to have on hand. And so I am going to go ahead, while that doesn't help me today, I know that I'm going to be training for long term here, and so I am going to go ahead and infuse this, and I'm going to whip up a salve so that I can easily have it on hand just to topically apply to my knee and the top of my foot. So that was obviously a topical way to use up dandelion leaf, but we haven't even talked yet about the dandelion root, which is great when you take it internally. And so I'm not actually going to be making this today. I'm trying to find my teapot, you guys. But you could harvest the dandelion root and you could dry it or use it fresh and make it into a tea. Got it. And essentially what you would do there is chop up about a tablespoon of that root. You would put it in some hot water. This is a long simmer, so you're going to actually let that steep for about 20 or 30 minutes. It's going to be very it's earthy. It's going to be earthy. I really recommend you sweeten it with some sort of honey to kind of damper that down. But you guys, it's so nourishing. So when you do the dandelion root tea, it's great for a liver support, gut support, and then overall inflammation support, right? So it's going to kind of stop the inflammation before it even comes. And so I really encourage you to, if you're out foraging the leaves, go ahead and forage the root and dry it and leave it for down the road. Now we're going to do kind of a gentler approach, and that is actually using the leaves to make a tea.
So let's chat through some of the benefits of drinking dandelion tea, right? Dandelion is going to support the liver's detoxification pathways, which really just helps your body clear inflammation byproducts that can cause some of the joint pain, fatigue, and even some sort of sluggishness that you're dealing with. And it's super rich in antioxidants, which we know can really help with chronic inflammation. It's also going to support the liver and the gallbladder, and it's going to encourage the body's natural natural cleansing and hormone balancing process, which is really important for reducing systematic inflammation, right? It is fantastic for your digestion and your gut health because it contains a prebiotic fiber, right, that pretty much feeds that beneficial gut bacteria. So when you have a balanced microbiome, it's going to help regulate your immune system, which, hello, we're all for that, but it's going to lower the inflammation throughout your body. And it's great at easing water retention and puffiness, which we kind of already talked about, right? Because the leaves act as this natural diuretic, right? So it's helping release excess fluid and swelling while replenishing your potassium so you stay balanced and hydrated. So I'm using about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of fresh leaves. I'm going to fill this up and let it steep for about 10 to 15 minutes. The longer it steeps, you guys, the better, more potent it's going to be. But I also love this tea because it regulates your blood sugar. So the dandelion may actually improve insulin sensitivities, right, and stabilize blood sugar. Another key to reducing inflammation and fatigue that we might be experiencing. And honestly, it's just so nourishing for your whole body because it is rich in those minerals like potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron, which is all needed for healthy muscles, nerves, and energy production. So we cannot sleep on this fantastic, commonly mistaken backyard weed because it does so many things, and this is just one way you can utilize it for this dandelion tea.
So one of the beauties of dandelion is that it goes far beyond just inflammation, right? Most of these herbal remedies have many herbal actions, meaning they do more than just one thing, which is why I'm just such a massive fan of herbal remedies and holistic wellness, right? It's because, this one herb can do so many things. While it can help with inflammation, and that's primarily what I'm using it for, it supports the liver, it supports your kidneys. It is great at detoxifying. It's good for your digestion. Leaves are incredibly mineral rich, which is great because when you apply it topically, it is going to reduce the swelling without actually depleting all the electrolytes in my body, right? And so you want to make sure when you're doing one thing, it's not triggering another thing in a negative aspect. And most times when it comes to some sort of herbal remedies, you're pretty safe, right? Because, I don't know, nature's just cool like that. The roots, as I've mentioned, while they are a little bit, earthy and acquired taste, you have to get used to it. It is going to support your gut microbiome like crazy because it's full of all of these prebiotics, which we all know our bodies absorb and use beautifully. And don't be sleeping on the flowers because those little yellow flowers we see popping up all over our yard right now are packed full of antioxidants, you guys. They are so good for you. You can make them, of course, into some sort of soothing balm, right? They're great for your skin. You can even use those to make a tea if you wanted to. So there's so many different ways. One I didn't even touch on was a dandelion root bitter. An herbal bitter, which I'm not going to make with you guys today, but I am going to give you my recipe. It'll be up here on the screen. Screenshot it, take a photo of it if you're watching this on your TV. It's an alcohol-based bitter, and it's really good to take in small doses. So ideally, you're making this with the root, and you're taking it like a couple drops, let's say, before each meal time, which is going to support your digestion and your liver function. And so it's really good to just kind of get in that practice too, and then you're able to utilize the entire plant, right? Which is just so fantastic. So I think the moral of the story is, whether you are whipping up a tea, whether you are making a salve, whether you're making a bitter, whatever it is, however you choose to utilize dandelion, right? It's so good because what it really does is it helps your body do what it was always designed to do in the first place, right? And that is to cleanse, to digest, and honestly just kind of rebalance itself. So I do these videos like this just to remind you guys that sometimes the answer to our problems and what we're looking for aren't going to be found on a store shelf. And while sometimes they may, and that's totally okay, oftentimes if we just pause and we look for it, we can find the most powerful healing right underneath our feet, right in our backyard, readily available for us to forage and turn it into all of these incredible medicinal purposes. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've been doing some form of herbal remedy for years now, but it wasn't until the last few years that I actually became connected to that I actually kind of sat in that wonder of like, wow, I can just go out my back door and harvest this and turn it into all of these amazing medicinal properties. And the connection that takes place when you choose to slow down, when you choose to have an holistic approach to wellness and health, it's just, gosh, once your eyes have been open to that, it's really hard to go back because it truly is just so special. And so for me, this humble little, what many would call weed, has become such a great reminder that healing is all around us if we choose to just slow down and listen to what nature is already providing. All right, so before we sign off, if you loved learning about dandelion, you guys, I want to just share with you something really special. Many of you guys might know her, but a dear friend of mine, Kaylee, over at the Honeystead, we have created an intimate, intentional community called Willow and Hive, and we dive into so many things just like this. We follow the wild method, which is whole foods from scratch, intentional remedies and herbs, living rhythmically, and detoxing your home and environment. And we deep dive every single month into different herbs, different whole foods, different ways to just support yourself as the seasons change. It has been such an incredible, beautiful space to create, and the people in it have just, made it all the better. And so we have, if you're in our top tier of that community, you get access to our home apothecary course, to any other course that we have, to some bonus resources. It's just so valuable and a place that we have loved showing up and pouring into every single day. So if you want to learn more about Willow and Hive, you can scan this QR code here, or you can check out the link in the description and you can start your herbal journey today. You can start taking that step to living a more holistic, aligned lifestyle, one intentional step at a time. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next week.